Welcome to the Advanced Grass Solutions Turf Hub podcast. AGS is a leading provider of agronomy services, exclusive products, and unrivaled customer support, underpinned by a well-qualified and experienced team of former sports turf managers. AGS. Supply, consult, support.
Jim, thank you ever so much for joining us today on the first edition of the Turf Hub from AGS.
No, you're welcome. Happy to be here.
Part of kind of working with you, I've noticed, even though you are at the highest standard and everything, you do have a good bit of humility to it. You know what I mean? And you bring everything back down to earth.
It's a strange one, really, because I completely am aware of where I am and what my role is, what my job is, and everything like that. But I think ultimately I have to keep it simple because I think it's trying to get that balance back right again. So I've got the whole get deep into the data, do the work, analyse everything, plan everything, tear all the plans up, start again, all the rest of it. So I need to go flip it and bring it all back down. So what I tend to do is just, right, I'm here, I get paid to do a job, I do the job, I drive home, and then I'm with the family at the end. And that's the only way. So it just gives me a chance to just, typical man, just be able to slot that in that compartment and close the drawer, and then I open this compartment and become dad, husband, etc., etc. And that's just the easiest way to kind of mentally decompress. I think is probably the best way to describe it.
Well, you need to, though, don't you?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's full on. It's a job that you don't get really much chance just to switch off completely. So, I mean, we've been talking before, but I mean, my wife tends to keep me distracted at home, and it's not in a great way. I have to decorate, so I've actually found it quite therapeutic because it doesn't give me an opportunity to think about anything else apart from the job that I'm doing. So that's been quite good. I'm not a big fan of decorating, but I do find that's actually about as good as it can be with regards to being distracted enough to worry about work, because otherwise I will just sit there and I'll go straight online and I'll be researching for something, and then something will come into my head and I'll be like, oh yeah, hold on a minute, let me just check that, and then before I know it, I've gone and wasted 2 or 3 hours, and I'm just like, wow, that's just work, you know. But it's difficult. Everybody says, oh, you shouldn't sweat the small stuff, but it's the small details and everything that add all the percentages, you see. So it's we've had this conversation, and it's kind of something I'll still stick by. But I think for a bulk of pitches, if you're a good groundsman, you can generally get about 80% of the way there. Albeit, you've got to have the resources and a little bit of luck and things like that. But I think once you get to the elite level, we are chasing the rest. So we are chasing the rest, and that's what, and we are continuously chasing, because we're never to get there. We're never going to sit back and go, this is it, we've nailed it, this is where it's going to be. But we know we're just at a peak of a wave, and it's going to just come crashing back down again at some point, whether that be the weather, whether it be more usage, whatever it's going to be. So that's what it is, and that's the best way to describe it. It's just that those guys are saying, yeah, well, you've got this, you can do that, and it's like, well, everybody can achieve it to a degree, and all you're doing is just chasing the fine margins at the elite level. Everything gets analysed, and you're never happy with 85%. You want 99%, you know, but it's just, you don't get it. You just don't get it, but that doesn't stop us chasing. So
it's all part of it, though, mate, isn't it?
Thing is, though, if you lose that hunger to want to be chasing that perfection, then you're going to struggle after that, because you need that motivation, and that's motivation for me is that continual chasing. And I think it is for a lot of groundsmen. I think it is that chase for perfection, knowing that you can't achieve it, but that's what your aim is going to be. Everybody says, oh, you need to have a realistic goal, but I think that is real to a lot of people, and it is. And that's what you're doing. You're just continuously pushing.
I see it with the kind of best people I work with. All of them have all the fundamentals in place, you know, and they're continuously striving for that perfection. But I don't think I've heard many of them say they're 100% happy at any point. It's always...
No. We're as easy to cut ourselves so much. It's unbelievable. Yeah. And I think that is by nature just how we are. I think we don't need other people to critique us. We do a very good job on our own. And it will lead to not sleeping very well. It will lead to anxiety. It will lead to overanalyzing. It will lead to overthinking, and that's just all part and parcel of it. And I think it's just having that ability to be able to manage that there's a time to unleash it and let that happen, and which tends to, you try and make sure it happens as much as you can in the workplace, and then be able to. I mean, I'm quite fortunate. I mean, I live 80 miles away, so my commute home, I've decompressed by the time I walk in the door. So that part of it's all finished. But I mean, that is what it is. I mean, we will critique ourselves. We don't need any help from anybody else. We don't need anybody to tell us our pictures are bad. We don't need anybody to tell us our pictures are good. We pretty much know where we're at with it, because we're looking at it every day. We're analysing it every day, and we will find something that's not right. 100%. Yeah. It's just in the nature.
But that's what keeps you going. It's a chasing for that perfection. But I do think it's an important part of it that you do get that switch off and enable yourself to relax.
It gets better as you get older. I mean, when I was a lot younger, but it would be all the time, especially when you get yourself in a role where there's a lot going on and it's very fast and furious. It's even harder then to just be able to switch off, because you're so busy in the job, you don't get that opportunity to sit back, reflect, plan, analyse. Everything's all happening at a million miles an hour. So you're literally you're knocking from one thing to the other. So then all that bit before work and all that bit after work is then that opportunity to analyse and think back and record and all that piece. All of a sudden your 8-hour day that you're doing turns into 12 hours, 14 hours, 16 hours, you know. It is very difficult to switch off. I've found since I became a dad, that was kind of the switch for me. It was just like, I can get to that point where I joke. It is very much not, it's a shallow joke. It's not a true sing joke, but I do actually think that's just a piece of grass. It's far more important is my kids are happy and healthy, and can I provide for them, looking after my family. And I think that's quite a good distraction from the job.
A lot of people have said that to me, and I'm still yet to have children, but I find the peace when I go home, as you know, with Arthur, my dog, you know, and also I've got Jade that will quite happily keep me grounded.
And that is it, though. I think you do need to have somebody that's got no familiarity with the industry. And you're able to talk about their work rather than your work. That's always quite good. So, I mean, I always get home, and as like lots of couples do, you sit down and you watch a bit of TV, but before you get into something, you just have a chat. How was your day? Things like that, you know, and it just helps. It helps you kind of switch off from what you're doing. It's just, I mean, I've got 3 kids, and well, that's about as distracted as you can get, I think, because I walk in the door, the Xbox doesn't work, the router's gone down, I've smashed my iPad. Or I've just got my youngest, who's just she's lively, I think it's safe to say. So yeah, she wants to do backflips, front flips, jump off the bottom flight of stairs at me as soon as I walk in the door, that sort of thing. So yeah, and that's nice, and I need that though, because I don't think managing it all on your own is a good thing. You have to have that distraction, and whether that's a hobby, whether you play golf, whether you go and play football the weekends when you've got free weekends. Whatever you do, as long as it's something that's not work related, as in, I'm going to look after my lawn or my garden, you know, it's just like, no, you just need to find something completely different. Albeit saying that, though, I think there's a lot of groundsmen who don't actually have other hobbies because they're just too busy. There's not even have an opportunity to have a hobby, but it's definitely something that I've not been able to take anything up as a hobby, but like I say, my family's the distraction at the moment, so keeps me distracted from the work.
But do they, with your kids and stuff, do they understand your job role? Do they get, you know, you're the head of Twickenham?
Yeah. So I mean, my youngest, I mean, I think it's more the fact that she doesn't really care about anything. So I don't think I can really hold it against her that she knows what I'm doing or where she's going. But she's very aware that I work at Twickenham, and I've brought them down here. Any stadium or job that I've worked in the UK where I can take them, I will take them with me so they can see it and they can burn some energy off and just see what I do. My lad's come down a couple of days just for like work experience with school, so he's come down, so he's got a bit slightly better understanding of what I'm doing day to day and things like that. But yeah, no, they do know. I don't say whether that makes a massive impact on their lives. I doubt it, but if anybody asks, what does your dad do? They can pretty much say what I do. So that's something, I guess.
It's a good start, mate.
Yeah, well, like I say, sometimes it's not a bad thing. I guess it's again, if you've got quite a unique role within quite a unique industry, I think there is quite an element there that's quite alien to a lot of people.
Yeah, true.
So almost to the point where they don't even realise it's an industry. I mean, everybody turns the TV on and sees a sport, and they're just like, well, it's not even a thought process, is it? So
yeah, I think that's a big point we can touch on later on, especially with people kind of flicking on TV and quite quick to kind of judge at some points. But before we get into that, one of the first questions I wanted to ask you is that what's the kind of story behind how you got here? I saw a thing that you put out on social media a little while ago, and I think it was a wage slip from when you first started your apprentice.
Oh right, yeah. So that was a letter from the bursar confirming my pay rise of a massive £15 a week or something for it. But yeah, it was. I know. Is it? To be honest, I mean, I finished school, did my GCSEs, and I lived at home with my dad and my brother. So my parents are divorced. So me and my brother stayed with my dad through our school years, our formative school years. And my dad's been a massive kind of mentor and as well as a dad. But I mean, he's very, very happy to kind of share advice and steer and all the rest of it. So he's Scottish, so he's quite abrupt and he's quite happy to tell you how it is. So I kind of finished school, a bit mediocre, not brilliant. And he said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I don't know." So I kind of signed up for sixth form, dossed around for a bit, didn't really come out with any accreditation or anything out of that, which was a bit of a disaster. While I was still making my mind up, I guess like a lot of people, they just don't really want to leave the school. They're not too sure what they want to do, so they just kind of hang on to what they know. So yeah, I kind of left there, and Dad said, "We've got two options here. You can either come and work with me," which was at Weetabix and Burton Latimer at the time. So he said, "You can do an engineering apprenticeship, and you can train to be an engineer and look after the lines and machinery and the ovens and stuff like that." He said, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I said, "I want to work outside." So I mean, I was mad into my sport. I love my football. I played rugby as well, and I was just like, I think I'd rather be outside. So to be fair, even my mum got involved, and they started trawling through, seeing what was what and what I could do, and they did VIP apprenticeships. So this is like mid-90s, so we're talking like 96, 97, and they had one at Kimbolton School, and it was a day release at Morton College, which is in Northamptonshire. It's like a lot of these, it's an agricultural college, but it had a sidearm that did horticulture as well and amenity sports. So I signed myself up, did the interview with the college. So they said yes. Had the interview with Kimbolton School. They said yes. So that was it. I was kind of up and running, really. My boss there was Andy Traynell. Great guy, really great guy. Got on really well with him. And my first day, and I'll never forget it, he literally said, "Right, come follow me." So he took a B-Series tractor, Kubota, took it out into the middle of the field. So it was in the middle of the school holidays because I started in like July, so it was before term started. And he parked up in the middle of this field and he got off of it and he said, "Right, learn how to drive that." And he just walked off. So he just left me in this field. And I was like, "Oh, right, okay." So, and that was it. That was my first 2 hours of working, was to try and work out how to drive a compact tractor.
He's being chucked in the deep end. There you go, mate. Drive that.
Yeah. So I've done my first 6 months. I think that was my pay rise. I think so I went from £50 a week to £65 a week. I think so. Something like that. It was quite significant though. So my dad actually kept it. So he was going through his boxes in his garage and he sent the picture down to me. I thought, "Oh, this is genius." So I mean, back in the sort of like mid to late 90s, that was like big money. I never really had any intentions or aspirations to kind of get to the top. It was just a case of I'll just keep working hard, and if there's an opportunity there and I think it's something that's going to challenge me, then that's what I'll do. I'll go for it. Yeah, I started at Kimbolton July 97, so it was about a month before my 18th birthday, and yeah, that was it. We just went from there, really. So it was fairly quick. I really loved the work. I loved working outside. I loved working with a team. It was one of those kind of, there's no aspirations really. You're just there to work and enjoy yourself. At that age, you don't really think along those lines. Like, oh yeah, I'd love to be head groundsman at here, or I'd love to be able to work at this stadium. There's nothing like that. Not when you first start. You're just learning how to look after grass at the very basic sort of level, and then you develop that way. There's no point pushing something. You need to get a really good understanding of the basics, and I found I got that. I got a good taste of everything at the school. So they did hockey, cricket was the big one, football, lawn tennis, all of these different sort of surfaces to look after and to prepare for and things like that. And I did actually really enjoy doing cricket wicket preparation. It's quite a fine art. You've really got to get a bit of a feel for it. It's almost dark art sort of thing as well. So you know the right time to roll, you know when you've rolled enough, you know when you haven't rolled too much and things like that. So I really enjoyed that, and I did that for like three and a half years. And while I was at college, there was a guy that was working at Russian Diamonds, and he said there's a job that's come up. So I thought, right, I'm going to apply for that. It'd be nice to work at a professional football club. It seemed like quite a natural step. It was in the town I lived in, so local club. I thought, no, that's nice. It would suit me. So I went for that. I think they had something ridiculous, like 200 applicants or something. It was something ridiculous. So I had the interview, and I was successful. So I was gutted I was leaving Kimbolton, but I think it was a good time for me to move. I loved the environment. I loved the team that worked there. And before I left, I was looking, because I'd qualified, I was then looking after the next years of apprentices that had come up. So I was kind of already supervising guys already, so it was quite nice in that sense. But it just felt like it was the right time. I just felt like I needed to move on and hone my skills a little bit more, looking after professional sports turf. It just seemed like the right move. So yeah, I went there as an assistant. Within about a year, I was deputy, just with the way things had shuffled. And then my boss left and went to Spurs. So then I took over from his job. So I became grounds manager at 22, League Two club. So it all happened very quickly, and that was all in the space of like 3 years. And some of it was luck, some of it was just fate, and some of it was just I just happened to be, let's give him a go kind of thing. That's what it felt like. And I mean, it was quite a small club, and everybody was really friendly. And I thought, well, I'd like to think I proved myself at that time I was there, but I must admit it was a change from like not even getting the opportunity to really kind of work as a deputy and really kind of get a good feel for it all. It kind of was like maybe 18 months, so it's not a really long time in that sense. And it's 18 months, and all of a sudden it's like my boss leaves, like, oh crap, I've actually got to make the decisions, and it's my fault if they don't go right. There's no like, oh no, do you want to speak to my boss? All of that had gone. There was no buffer for me, so. Yeah, and then getting used to doing the obviously the budgets and the POs and things like that, and it was a very quick transition. So I started, that was like 2003. So I was 22. But so I kind of ran through that, and then my boss, who was already at Spurs, Paul, he'd done sort of 6 months, 7 months, and he said to me, there might be a job coming up with me at the stadium. Let me know, and I'll apply. And it kind of came, and it was interesting really, because obviously going from a grounds manager could have potentially probably sat there and really developed the skills. That for me was probably the hardest decision. So essentially stepping back to in terms of title, but being in the Premier League. So that it was this kind of like, but should I, shan't I? All of a sudden I've got a commute to do. I'd bought a house by then, so I've got responsibilities with regards to that. It wasn't like, if it all goes wrong, the bank of dad will bail me out and all of that. None of that was there. So it was a big decision, and I spoke to my dad for a long time about it. And I remember he was like quite apprehensive, and I was like, well, I've got to give it a go. And worst case scenario, I'm going to have to try and find something else. That's the way I looked at it. So I went for the interview, met Darren, and had the interview and everything. So I was quite successful. I had to do quite a notice period, because obviously it was management level at a previous role, so I had to do 3 months notice period. So I did the interview in the August, and I didn't start actually at Spurs at White Lane until the December. So I walked in the door on December the 8th, 2003, which is such a long time ago. I'm just thinking, I was like, 2003. I actually had to think about that for a minute. I'm like, wow. So yeah, I went in there and did that, and then my boss, who actually I worked with previously, he was like, right, I'm going on paternity leave now. I was like, okay. He did. There was no mention of this at all. Kind of. So we had a week together. Then he went off on paternity leave. So my first game that I was in charge for, so essentially I had to look after it because there was only two of us at the time, was Man United.
No pressure, mate. Here you go.
I know. I walked in there, and the pitch was it was a bit tired. It has to be said. And this was back in the day, obviously before grow lights were going and things like that. And White Lane, I mean, it was such an inhospitable environment to grow grass in, and literally it was pretty much just deso, and there was just strands of grass and tufts of grass plant there, and I was like, wow, this is not good. And I remember I kind of like, well, let's see if we can just iron a bit of a pattern in, obviously knowing that there was not going to really be much of a pattern in there at all. So I thought, well, what can I do? And I just thought, well, I've got to distract it somehow. So I marked out the halfway line 4 times, literally just coated the paint on. And I've never actually checked the archive footage or anything like that, but from what I can remember, it was absolutely blinging. But it was just to try and distract the fact that there was no grass.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether it worked or not. I thought it was a good idea at the time, but so yeah, and I stayed as an assistant for sort of like 2 years, I think, and then my boss then left, being a new dad and everything, and he thought it was time to set himself up in his own business, so he left, and I took over from him. So it was July 2005, so I was 24, and I was head groundsman at White Lane.
Wow.
And that was it. I was kind of that was me. I was there for sort of 12 years, and I was there right pretty much to the end of when the stadium shut down before they moved into the new one. Yeah, I moved on from there. The opportunity was there to possibly get out of my comfort zone a little bit. So yeah, I moved away from there and had a bit of time in the summer just to kind of take stock of everything. I mean, it's a long time to be at one stadium, and it was surprising. It wasn't until I actually stopped and I wasn't kind of like, oh, I need to be doing this or I need to be doing that. And it was surprising. You don't realise how hard you're working until you stop working.
Yeah.
And I was exhausted. I was absolute toast, to be fair. And I suppose it's one of those, you just learn to operate like that, if you know what I mean. You get by on 4 hours sleep for a fair old period of time. I'm sure something goes wrong somewhere down the line, but I think you just learn to adapt, don't you? And that's the same thing, I think, when you're in professional sport. That's pretty much what it is. It's just full on all the time. So yeah, when I took a step away from there, I had the summer off, finally got around to doing my garden. I was getting my ear bent about for about 4 years that we'd been living in this house.
Yeah.
So I finally got that ticked off the list, which was a big bonus. And I did a little bit of landscaping and bits and pieces, just helping friends out and stuff. And then I got an opportunity to go and work in Malta to look after this national stadium out there and their training facilities. They just needed a bit of help just to kind of get things back on track. So I went out there and did 8 months. That was quite a again, it was an opportunity to learn something different. So I was in the transition zone. So we were going from Bermuda grass and transitioning back to ryegrass, and then obviously vice versa out the other side. So I got to do a couple of transitions, and it was nice. You're going in somewhere and you're used to pretty much having everything you need to look after a pitch, more or less, when you work at a Premier League football club. And went out there and it was like, sorry, we haven't got any water today. I was like, I'm sorry,
water?
What?
Yeah.
Fairly important sort of like resource that you need to keep grass alive when it's like 42 degrees, you know. So I was like, but I loved it though. It was so nice just to have, like, literally just get chucked in at the deep end, and you just have to learn very quickly and build relationships, new relationships and things like that. And I've obviously still got plenty of friends out there still now that I speak to quite regularly with regards to the Malta Football Association and stuff like that. So it was really good. And it kind of gave me a bit of a taste for just doing something different. So I kind of did that, really enjoyed it. And then I got chatting to Dean Gillespie, and they had a job coming up at Pro Pitch. So we were having discussions probably quite early, to be fair. It was just a case of just when the time was right. So I think there was lots of just waiting for all the dominoes to line up before they flicked the first one over. So we were having plenty of discussions and stuff like that. I had a couple of interviews, and yeah, I finished in Malta at the end of March, came home, went and had a holiday with the family, and then that was it. I was come back straight back into working with Pro Pitch, and it was a crazy 15, 16 months. I mean, it was just non-stop. Pretty much started there, and I got tasked with setting up the Pro Pitch app. So that was kind of the first one. So never done it before in my life. I knew what I think it needed to look like, but how you get there was just a whole. It really was a huge learning curve, and I dedicated a lot of time to that. Certainly in the first sort of like 5 months, it was just all about that app, and it was like full on. So Dean got his ear bent pretty much every day. What do you think about this? What about that? Maybe we should think about including this. And Dean being Dean, he'd give you a bit of advice, and then you'd see it when it comes back up, and he'll see it, and then he'll be like, "Oh no, that don't work," and all the rest of it. And that was the best bit, though. I get on so much better with people that are just so black and white. This is what I think, and I'm going to tell you, and we'll have a falling out. Then we'll agree to disagree, and then we'll just move on, and that's it. And that's how it was with Dean. That's just how we worked. So yeah, we developed the Pro Pitch app, and then had a contract with UEFA. So we had the Champions League final, Europa League final, and that was Women's Champions League and the Super Cup. So we had those that was obviously quite big. And then we had three massive tournaments as well. So we did Club World Cup was one prep, and then cross over because it was all in the United Arab Emirates. We did that, and it crossed over to the Asian Cup. So we kind of had a continuation of about two. I think in total it was about 3 or 4 months' work, but it was all broken up. But we did 2 months pretty much solid either side of Christmas, New Year, and that was brilliant. Got to meet a load of guys out there that were looking after those pitches and facilities, which was a great experience. Loved it. And we were there to support the guys there that were running the tournament. So we were just making sure the pitches were up to scratch and fed back into them reporting and things like that, which was really good. I helped the guys out if they were feeling the pressure a little bit, and just gave them some advice with things just moving forward, which was really good. So we did all of that, and it was a crazy time, and I loved it though. It was just ridiculously hard work. I mean, I was there 15 months, and I think I did something stupid like 60,000 air miles. So, considering I spent 4 months at the very start of it in the UK, the rest of the time we were just travelling. So, I mean, I was pinging from all over the place. I mean, Dean loves it. Dean absolutely loves it, and I enjoyed it. I must admit, I did enjoy it. But you get sort of like after about 12 weeks, like I could do with a couple of weeks at home here. That'd be quite nice. But just that opportunity never arose. It was just there was always something to do. So I did all of that, and then. I've just done a shift in Cairo to help out. We had a contract out there just to help do a sort of like a pitch transition and train some of the staff up and stuff like that. So myself and Dean and another guy, Greg, we were kind of just splitting our role time in there just to kind of help the guys. So I flew from Cairo and had to be in Budapest for the Women's Champions League final. And I had to do all this pinging around. I couldn't fly direct, so I had to go to Vienna. I had sort of 2-hour layover in Vienna, and then I chopped across to Budapest. So I think my day started at about 6 a.m. and I went in there, checked with the lads, checked the pitch, made see the machinery was there that was going to turn up. And I got to my hotel in Budapest, got checked in and sat on a bed at 2 a.m. I was toast, like absolutely brain dead as well. I don't sleep really on short haul flights. If it's long flights, I'm all right. I'll sleep. But that's like 2 hours you just don't sleep. And I sat down, I had a shower and everything, got myself chilled out, and I did the usual, just scroll through bits and pieces, and just came up, and there was a job for here, and I thought, I'm going to give it a go. And it was, and I've said it before, it's one of those jobs that personally I would always class as one of the jobs to have. Yeah. So I would have done myself an injustice if I didn't go for it, and it would have been a proper what if sort of moment if I didn't. I'd rather go for it and not get the job than not go for it and
look back and think
what could have been. Yeah, exactly. So we did all of that, and in between sort of like flying around everywhere, I managed to get in for a couple of interviews, and I started here in September 2019, and it's been the weirdest start to a career or a job ever. It's honestly, I just couldn't even make it up. It was a quiet November because it was a World Cup year, so there was no November internationals. That didn't happen. So we had quite a bit of corporate usage. So we had quite a lot of sponsors days and things like that we kind of worked our way through. We had big game Harlequins, which was great. And then we did Six Nations, and I thought, there we go. Now this is what it's all about. And then bang, pandemic. and it's just been absolutely crazy since. It's just been non-stop. Really has been non-stop. Considering we've not had any fixtures to talk of apart from the Autumn Nations Cup, the work has been full on. It's been a prolonged transition from my predecessor and obviously how he worked and what procedures and things were in place then. And there's been no rush. We've just been like, I've had time to be able to really get a feel for how the team works and how they do things, and then pick ideas up and make suggestions and things like that. And we've just slowly adjusted to just a different way of working, really. So it seems to be working. It's not like it's it's not like it's all gone horribly wrong yet. So no. It's we're kind of plugging away. So it's been a fair old road. I haven't had lots of jobs, to be fair, considering how long I've been working in the industry for. I've not really moved around too much. I did obviously an extremely long stint at Spurs, but yeah, I mean, I don't think it's one of those. Everybody kind of thinks, oh, you come out of nowhere. A lot of people obviously know me within the industry, but it's not like it's I'm not like stepped out of college and walked straight into the top job. That's not how it works in our industry. You have to graft, and it's the only way. And I say it to anybody I know. You only get somewhere in this job, or certainly in this industry, by grafting. There's no two ways about it. You've got to be willing to put the shifts in.
Yeah, you can't be afraid of being uncomfortable. You know, with the challenges.
Of course. I mean, if you know there's a chance you're going to have to do a 70-80 hour week. Mm-hmm. That's just part of it. You can't fight nature. You can't beat it. You have to try and work around it, and she'll throw whatever she likes at you. You've just got to learn when to take the punches and when not to take them. You know, that's just how it is.
I think that's a skill in itself, though, Jim, especially this time of year, because it's horrible weather. Everyone's doing as much as they possibly can. You know, you're messing around with lighting rigs, sheets, everything else, trying to get the plant to grow in an unnatural situation. One thing I always see with yourself and a lot of the other top guys, to be fair, you crack on. The motivation's still there.
Yeah, I mean, and you have to. I mean, it's the thing. It's just, like I said, for me, when I was younger, it was a hunger. I just wanted to get into it, and I've never shied away from working hard. It's never been my thing. I've always, if I've got to do 10-hour days, I do 10-hour days. If I've got to go in on a Sunday, I've got to go in on a Sunday. It's just what you've got to do. So it's just that motivation thing. I think as you get older, I think you appreciate more that you can't change things. You can't change things. It is going to happen. The weather is going to do what the weather's going to do, and you are going to have fixtures. That's what you've got to deal with, and it's entirely up to you how much work you want to put in, how much planning you want to put in to try and make sure that those fixtures happen. Yeah. And that's it. That's your job. Your job is to make sure fixtures happen. And like I say, if of course you're going to get dark days. That's just all part and parcel. But it doesn't matter whether you're in this industry or any other industry. Everybody gets dark days, and it's just how that happens. You know, it's just like, well, that's gone wrong this week. I had that planned, but the weather's shafted me. I was going to do that, but this has happened. It happens for everyone. Literally, it happens for everyone, and it's very difficult to not do a poor me. It's really hard not to, because you can honestly you can sit in the stand and look at the pitch and go, it's fucked. And it's so easy to do that. But I think what I have learned is if you're looking at it every day, you get a very warped view.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing I've taken away, and it comes with experiences. Now I look at it for what it is, and it's at face value now. I don't go, oh, it's not improving quick enough. Jim, it's been 24 hours, you idiot. I don't know what you were expecting to happen in 24 hours. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. Things can happen in 24 hours, but and I think it's managing your own expectations. I think it's so easy just to kind of, I want it to be brilliant all the time. It's just not possible. It's always a work in progress. And I think as soon as you can accept that it's always a work in progress, that's your motivation then. It's like, I know I've got to get this done. This is what I've planned for. That's going to give me, that's the next day done. That's this week done. And I know if I've got the end of this week, and if I think what I've put in there is going to give me that result at the end of it, that's what I'm taking to the next week. So I think it's just getting a good understanding of what resources you have available, what products are out there, having a really good understanding of what is out there and what's going to be, I say useful. I mean, of course it's going to be useful, but is it going to be bespoke enough, or is it going to fit in well enough into the program you've currently got planned? I mean, we're always fine tuning, we're always adapting, we're always changing. I think the methodology doesn't change too much, but I think what fits into that methodology does. I think ultimately, the things that's changed since I've been in this industry, whereas before there was a small product portfolio available for us, and we had to make it fit. Yeah. So it was a nearly there, or it's kind of fitting that, you know, it's not like it's not exactly what I want, but it's almost what I want. And I think that margin's changed, and it's almost like the roles have reversed now. So I think it's very much now we've got the ability to actually request something for then companies to then, fair enough, funny enough, I've had a couple of guys that have asked me about that. And then now I think companies now have adapted to actually either procure and find the products that suits, or have the ability to be able to produce that product bespoke for whoever needs it. And I think that's a big thing that's shifted, certainly over the last certainly the last 10 years. I think there's been a big shift where it's gone away from, well, we've only got this, so this is what you're going to have to make do with. It's like, okay, but it's not quite what I'm looking for, you know. And it's just, I think it's that's having that ability to just kind of be able to not necessarily dictate. That's not what you're doing, but you're able to manipulate the market to suit. And I think that's a good thing. And I think I think there's a lot of guys now that are asking the same sorts of questions, and they're challenging companies to come up with the goods now, rather than just saying, well, I haven't got that, well, sorry, I can't help you, and then they go away. It's not that now. It's like, well, hold on a minute, we haven't got that, we've got this for now, but we're actually going to look into trying to do this. Do you know what I mean? The relationship's just changed now. I think it's changed quite a bit.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that. You know, it's I've been in the industry as long as you, but even over the last 10, 15 years, there's been big developments on the product side. I mean, when you look back at football years ago, I was speaking to somebody the other day. You know, he was like, we had 3 fertilisers.
Yeah. That's what it was, wasn't it?
We just up and down the rates, depending on what we wanted at the time.
Yeah.
And as long as we have the fundamentals in place, it was all right.
Exactly. Interestingly, though, I'll tell you what is interesting, actually, is how much, and it goes to show you how things have changed quite significantly, is that you've gone from having really small ranges of fertilisers available to now having the hugest portfolio ever. I mean, I think I could honestly pick up the phone and speak to like 6 or 7 guys now, and I could probably get, I don't know, 20 different products from each guy.
Easy.
So, I mean, and you're looking at that straight away, and that's a good thing. I don't think that's a bad thing. Interestingly, you were saying, and then you look at the fungicides, and I'm going back 20 years ago, and it was you had so much choice with regards to fungicides, and then it got kind of really technical where they had to obviously start moving in and around the EU laws and stuff like that. So now we've got to a point where it's just like, well, yeah, we've got 6. That's it. The end.
Yeah. I do agree. I think there's been a real transition. The last few years, product side of it has gone massive. And I know, well, we keep it fairly simple with the kind of products that we choose. But yeah, I think people in the industry as a whole are kind of waking up, and they are being a bit more inquisitive.
Absolutely. Like I said, it's been able to have that ability to challenge. And I think as well, I think the fact is that, I suppose to a certain degree, us guys at the top end that are pushing the boundaries and asking the questions and challenging and things like that, it's a benefit to the industry. Massively. Ultimately, because then that all of a sudden that's a portfolio or new products that have come about now that has been on the basis that we've demanded that from the market. So anybody that's working anywhere else in the industry now also has access to those products. So it's that's a good thing, and I think it's a great attitude that you have to have. And I mean, like I say, a lot of the guys, the current generation of guys that are working at the elite level is that I think we are all very similar with regards to our approaches and our attitudes to work, and I think that's quite a good thing, because that in itself is quite a powerful thing to move the industry on, and I think it really needs that. I think it really does need that, and it's just a case of just trying to keep pushing, really, just to try and keep things moving along.
I agree, mate. And what I do love about the kind of groundsmanship side of it is that you guys are willing to talk. You know, you're willing to share ideas and share thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, do you know what? And I think it used to be very kind of closed doorish, and there'd be certain amounts that you'd share, and there'd be some things you wouldn't talk about. But I mean, it's like now I think obviously it's a bit different because, well, we can't go and see anybody at the minute. But obviously, in normal times, you could literally just say, right, are you about? Do you mind if I pop over in a couple of weeks' time? And and everybody's like, yeah, come up, and you'll just go up there and you'll have a brew and you'll have like I say, you'll shoot the shit and you'll have a good walk over the pitch. And I think as well, though, the key here is that nobody's afraid to ask questions. So rather than wait to be sort of like have the information shared now, we ask the questions. And so I'll drop into, I'll go see, for instance, I'll go see Paul at Arsenal, or if I go see Brad's. There's none of this, show me around, see where we're going at. I'm straight in there, I'm asking questions. Because I think the thing is, to a degree it breaks the ice, but I think it kind of just gets to the crux of the issue, is that if I ask you those questions, but if you come to my place, you want to ask me questions, there's no kind of, you don't have to wait. There's none of this kind of waiting on ceremony. It's just like, come on, let's share the information, and it helps. That's the thing. It's just like, do you know what? That's a really good idea, and I'm going to try that. And do you know what I mean? And in fact, that's bought me that 2%. It might be that 2%, but
I think that's needed, mate, because similarly to the golf side is what I see. The demands are just higher and higher and higher. The expectations are higher and higher and higher.
Everything's going that way, though, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, and like I say, there's an expectation, and it's about managing those expectations. That producing the goods week in, week out is exceptional. It is exceptional, and I think there has to be a point where you can turn around and say, well, it can't be like that all the time, and it's not necessarily anything that you, as a groundsman, you've actually done any different. Ultimately, the weather is going to dictate how good your pitch is, unless you've got to that point where you can fix those variables, which you can't. You can't fix the weather. That ultimately makes that decision as to how good or bad a surface is. Yeah. And I think that's the thing. And people are easy to forget that, though. People don't understand an impact of a winter and how much that takes to recover. And it's easy to forget drainage issues in the summer.
Yep.
I was like, we're back in the summer now, everything's growing, cushy, brilliant. But proactive groundsman, we already took, well, hold on a minute, where are all my bad areas from winter? Because I need to address that now and get them fixed, ready for this coming winter. And it's so easy just to kind of roll through. I forgot it's bad again. And there's a reason behind that, you know. So, again, going back to that point, it's just challenging everything, you know. So... Yeah. You need to have the ability to do that.
Yeah, and I think a lot what I've kind of seen and what I've kind of put together in the background is doing the right things at the right time, you know, and having that experience behind it onto when to pull or do the right thing at the right time.
Yeah.
But a lot of it for me, wherever I go, a lot of it still comes back to one of the first things I ever learned, which was water, air, light, temperature.
Basics. Interestingly, 9 times out of 10, the solution lies in one of those things. Yeah. It's either too much, it's not enough, or it's completely missing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the layers of complexity. That's the thing. So I think you've always got to be able to have that pyramid of just taking it right back to the basics, and like you just mentioned, are those elements there? And if they're all there, then you look into the next layer and say, right, and then you actually start breaking it down that way. And it's very easy to get lost in that and not refer back to the foundations of the basics of life. What does every living organism need to live? And that's the way you've got to look at it. And like I say, I think in stadiums it's easy to start ticking boxes quite quickly because it's quite an inhospitable environment. But it's the same across anything, really. I mean, if you have, I don't know, let's say 3 weeks of overcast weather, then that's going to have an impact on the plant's metabolism, what it's able to do. So it's just having that ability to be able to understand, and the fact that sometimes you can't actually change anything. It's just a process that you think, right, this is how it's going to be. It's declined. What do I need to do to get it back right? Sometimes that happens, it's part of it. That's the interesting part of the job, really,
Yeah, and I do think we're moving, the more people I see and speak to, I do think we're moving into a much clearer kind of future as to kind of what does what, and a lot more documentation and data collation. But it was interesting what you said just a second ago about you kind of realise you've done everything you can do. And I think that falls into what I see with like yourself during like tournament play, or one of my first experiences was actually with Chris Haspel with the Scottish Open. So over there, as in when the actual tournament came and like day of tournament and everything else, the kind of top people I see are so calm, and I was kind of looking at these guys coming through going, how the bloody hell are they so calm? Inside you might be going absolutely mental, but on the outsider looking in.
It's interesting because you have to remember all the hard work's been done, and everything's all built up to that point. So regardless of whether it's a game, whether it's a tournament, whatever it is you're delivering, all the planning, all the work that's been put in, that's it, it's done. There's nothing more you can do. So everything you've got now is just going to be on reflection. So as in, right, how has that surface played during that time? And then that's when you're kind of thinking, right, I did have that plan for next week, but that's not quite done how I wanted it to play. I think there's something there we can probably adapt or change. And that's what you do. And I think you start seeing past certainly from my experience, you start seeing past the people in the stands, the match day buzz, as you call it. You're able to fog it out, basically. So, and you're actually just seeing the job for what the job is. And I think there's certain elements there. So, like for me here, it's just the national anthems. It's like, big occasion, pyros, all the rest of it. You think, that's nice. Game starts. It's like, right, how's this pitch going to play? It's straight back into it again. Get focused. But I think as long as you remember, there's nothing you can do. You've just got to identify if there's anything that hasn't done what you expected it to do. What do you need to do to make sure it does? And don't get me wrong, I don't sit there with a notebook and start making notes of what's not right and what is right. But I do spend a long time looking down at the floor when I go out there at half time and just, this isn't quite how I wanted it to play, or this is going above my expectations, which happens a lot because I don't have high expectations.
Well, I think you do. You put a lot of pressure on yourself to deliver the highest standard, and you want the best of the best.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's. But you're paid to do that. That's what you are there for. Yeah. You are the specialist in that role, and that's what you're there to be. That's what you're there to do. So you're paid for a role. That's what you need to do. And again, it's difficult to try not to simplify it, but that's essentially it. I mean, it is. It's a piece of grass that has to perform as well as the teams that are on it.
Yeah.
And that's the way you've got to look at it. And I've always took the analogy. This is essentially it is that pitch is an athlete. That's what you're doing. You're honing it and you're conditioning it for play. And that's what you're trying to do.
Thanks for listening to Advanced Grass Solutions Turf Hub podcast. For more information, visit advancedgrass.com or follow us on socials using the handle @AdvancedGrass.